Welcome to Butterflies of Wisdom, everyone. And today I get to talk about my two favorite subjects in the whole wide world. And it's not just me who's going to be talking. I have Jon with me. Jon is the host of the Teacher's Tunnel podcast, and he talks about teachers and their morning routines. And their routine. I have yet to listen to the Teacher Tunnel podcast, but it's going to be one of my new favorite podcasts. So without further ado, I'm going to let Mr. Jon take it away.
Hey, how are you doing today? I'm really happy to be here.
I am doing perfectly fine. And my first question to you is, why did you start the Teacher Tunnel podcast?
Well, I am a teacher. I've been teaching for 7 years now, and I teach, for the past 7 years, I've taught middle school English, so to 6th and 7th graders, and I love podcasts. I think I started back in 2012 with Talks with Teachers with Brian Stabnick and the Dave Ramsey podcast, and that opened my mind to a whole new world, and podcasting is just so fun for me. And I had a buddy I worked with who started his own podcast, and he asked me to do some blog posts for it. And I really was interested in how they were getting these podcasts out there. So I kind of shadowed him for a couple days and said, I can do this. And I've been familiar with building websites, just as far as like Google sites and things like that. So I thought that part would be pretty fun. And then the podcast came about as I'm a teacher, and I really wanted to get to know other teachers out there and learn from them. And so one of my favorite things is just morning routines, any type of routines that leaders either in education or beyond have, and I love to learn about those. And so if it was socially acceptable to go up to anybody and tell me what their morning routine is, that's exactly what I'd probably do. So that's kind of where
Jon, I love it.
Yeah, and so that's kind of where it started. It started in September. I'm a pretty quiet guy. I'm a shy, introverted type person, and so reaching out to people is kind of difficult for me. So on Twitter, I followed a guy named Todd Finley, Dr. Todd Finley. He's an associate professor at East Carolina University, and he has his own website, todd-finley.com, and he writes blog posts for Edutopia, and I just loved everything that he did. And so I reached out to him thinking like I'm nobody, he would never reply back. And he replied the next day and said, yeah, I'd love to be on your podcast. And so that's kind of where it all started. And I realized like, hey, it's not as difficult as I thought it was.
Well, that's amazing that a doctor of education would reply back to you on Twitter. Twitter to me is power. Email, second power, but Twitter to me is the power. And so, Jon, what is your favorite book? It doesn't have to be a teaching book. We read enough academic books until we're blue in the face, at least I do. And I read enough kids' books until I'm blue in the face. But what is your favorite book? It doesn't have to be a teaching book. It just has to be a book that you go back to time and time again.
Yeah, and I'll preface this with I've never been a big reader. So until this past summer, it was one of the books that changed my life, and it was Mindset by Carol Dweck about the growth and fixed mindset. And that book opened my whole spectrum. And I read that before I even started the podcast. And so that is the book that had the huge impact on me and has changed my whole paradigm. So Mindset is definitely a book I suggest to anyone and everyone, especially students and teachers.
So Mindset, okay, Mindset could be found obviously on Amazon, probably on Audible. So type in Mindset by Carol Dweck, and you will find a whole mindset book about mindset, because us as teachers, and John would agree with me, have to have a strong mindset to stick with a job. Actually, John, I think I told you, when we met via Twitter, via Lipson, via Voxer, via
Right.
Lipson chat, I said I was a retired preschool teacher, which I am, and now I'm going back to teach for the next 4 years, and I'm going into music teaching. But we still have to have the strong mindset. So for those teachers who are in summer school right now and thinking, oh boy, I don't want to be dealing with these kids, but I'm doing this for the paycheck, what would be your advice from one teacher to another?
If they're only in summer school to collect a paycheck, I totally understand. I've been that teacher before. My advice would be become the best at your craft. So if you are not enjoying it, make it to where you can enjoy this particular summer school teaching environment. Because there are a lot of teachers out there that get burned out because we are given a ton of tasks to do, whether it be grading or moving kids' test scores up, things like that. So it's a very tough industry to be in as far as burnout goes. My suggestion would be, if you're going to be a teacher and you're going to have these relationships with kids, you need to be the best at it. And so instead of trying to do other things, hone in on your craft and become the very best at that particular junction. And if you are in summer school right now and you are hating life and you'd rather be at a pool, I totally get it. But make the best of it. And that's what I try to express to my students is make the best of the situation. If you're bored, it means you're boring. It means you need to be doing something to excite your students as well as yourself.
Yeah, because teaching preschool got the best of me. I'm sorry, but
I totally understand.
Because of I know you do because you have been in dinner probably, but because of the paycheck, because don't get me started about paycheck. Whether you're teaching high school English or middle school English, like John is, or preschool, it's the same paycheck.
Right.
Excuse me, disabled or not.
Yeah, there's no incentives, and that's tough.
There's no incentive. So what made you stick around for as long as you have?
Well, I don't look at it as a paycheck. I look at it as a career I'm developing. And out of this career has this podcast started, and without it, it never would have happened. But what I try to look at the positive. I'm an optimist, and I tried, and I haven't always been, but after reading that book, I've become one. But what I see as far as on the positive side of it is we do get breaks. I have the summer off. I have 2.5 months, almost 3, to do whatever I want. And I think that's a huge thing that not a lot of people in careers have. And so that's the way I look at my paycheck is it's paying the bills. Yes, it would be a whole lot easier if it was more, but I also have room to grow in other areas.
Yeah. And you also, someone who's a teacher who's also disabled, a friend of mine asked me last night, "You're not teaching during the summer, are you?" And I said, "No, I'm focusing on me, and I'm focusing on myself." And he goes, "I agree. We take on a totally different job because when we're not teaching, we're taking care of ourselves. We're giving ourselves self-care, and I don't care if you're disabled or not. All teachers need self-care.
Oh, I 100% agree. And I think a lot of teachers that do get burned out are the ones that put all of their energy into their job and aren't doing the things outside of themselves. They're not getting that quiet time, that meditation time, the reading time, the time with their family. They're not doing the things that they have to do in order to stay in the profession. And luckily, I really enjoy having downtime, and I use it very, very well, whether it be television, radio, podcasts. So I'm definitely a proponent of self-care for sure.
I'm only in the classroom one day a week, and my job asked me, do you want more time in the classroom? I'm like, no, thank you, because of my disability and because of I'm more of a creative than I am said teacher. So I'm like, no, thank you, but thank you for offering, but no, thank you. I need my self-care just as the rest of you do. I mean, geez, I know people have stayed in the education field for 20 years plus, and I'm like, how do you find self-care? Okay.
Yeah. It's those that have been teaching for that long have definitely found a routine that works for them, because if they didn't, they wouldn't be in it that long.
They must find something that works for them, because teaching is tough. You have to deal with the parents, the admin, the kids, and so if you can share a story, Jon, what has been your favorite teaching moment in your career, or you can share your favorite podcast episode that you have done on the podcast.
Oh, wow. I've loved all the guests. I've always gotten at least one thing from all of my guests on the podcast. My favorite teaching moment would probably be this year. And that's because I opened myself up a little more to my kids. You know, we all come from you're 30, you probably still know this. We all come from the background of the teacher teaches and we listen. And getting out of that paradigm is difficult for a lot of teachers. I think I did that. Not all the way. I mean, there's definitely times where I was the teacher, I was the authoritarian, but I opened myself up a little bit more this year to my students, to where they got to know me and they got to know my hobbies and the things that I was doing. And they were interested, and and these are sixth graders. So we're not having these, in-depth conversations, but sometimes. And I think that's been my proudest moment, is just me opening myself up, because I'm a pretty closed guy. I don't let a lot of people in. And so opening myself up to my students this year was really eye-opening for me.
Yeah, because you and I come from the perspective of the teacher teaches and we listen as a student. The next generation will be coming from the perspective of equal opportunities, equal ground. And so I think with technology, it's a whole different just the iPads and iPhones in the classroom drive me nuts. But the kids prefer reading on Kindle than they do textbooks. But I can't read a textbook because I can't hold a textbook because due to my physical disability. But that's a whole different story in itself. But the able-bodied kids prefer Kindle over a textbook. And so I don't know how to put this question, Jon, but I'll put it this way. What is your best advice to those students who have the summer book list and they want to read on Kindle, they want to read on their phones, or they just are too lazy to go to the library and sit down and read a book? What is your best advice from an English teacher's perspective?
So the question is, what do students, my advice to students that would rather just read from their phone as opposed to going and getting a book.
Yes. Yes. And
I think sometimes we fetishize these, the books, and we're in an age now to where we have all these great ways to get information, whether it be through audiobooks, Kindle, your iPhone, any way, as long as you're getting that information. I don't think it matters. I mean, I love books. Like, I love the feel of books. I love that I can highlight books. I love that I can write in the margins. Those are all great. But I mean, if I have a summer reading list for kids, whatever way, if you love to listen to audiobooks and you get that and you can actually sit down and listen to it, then you do it. I'm definitely not so closed off as to say you have to read the book, and so I think always, and especially now with the technology where you can highlight things inside the Kindle, highlight things in the iBooks, you can actually download. I mean, I have my Metro Library card or my Metro Library app on my phone, and I can download an ebook of whatever book I want to read if it's available. So I think those are all just great tools, and just whatever gets you to get that information that's required of you I'm all for it.
Oh, you're fun. You're gonna be my best friend, because I thought you were going to get the book and that's it. Nope. Nope.
Yeah.
John's thought he's like adapted to a lifestyle if you only have access to an iPad. Get the book on the iPad, then read it, and then do the book report on the iPad. Because I know a lot of classrooms and a lot of schools are now implementing Google Docs and Google Classrooms into the classroom. So you're going to be my best friend, because you're like, as long as these kids get the information, I don't care how you do it as an English teacher. And John, what is your why you went into English teaching to middle schoolers? Why?
Well, I didn't start until late. I started at your age. I started when I was 30, because before that I did a bunch of coaching. I thought I wanted to be a coach, and it ended up that I didn't want to be a coach. So how I got into English was I wasn't the best student. I didn't enjoy school. It wasn't fun for me. The only reason I was in school was to play sports. And so school wasn't really that exciting for me. And so English was probably my best subject. I felt like I could write a decent amount and understand things a certain way when it came to English. Math, on the other hand, I wasn't so great at. So English came naturally to me, and I didn't get an education degree, so I went the alternative route, which a lot of teachers cringe at whenever they hear that. But I took a test and I passed my English test, and so I've been teaching English ever since. I will note that next year I'll be teaching an enrichment class at the middle school level, so I won't be teaching English anymore. It's got a little more autonomy, and we'll be able to do a lot with that class. So I'm pretty excited about it.
Well, as my fan base knows, I'm making a career pivot within education. I'm going from preschool to teaching third grade music, thank God. So, John, you and I will have a little bit more fun with these kids. You and I will have a little bit more fun and a little bit more creativity with these kids, because I personally think we're squishing the creativity out of these kids in the education system, but that's just me.
Oh, it's definitely creativity is something that has got to be given to these kids. I think that's ideal for sure. And you taught preschool. I taught sixth grade. I'm pretty sure they're on the same level. Sixth graders are at that age of like their brain hasn't connected the wires yet, so they're kind of like at that toddler stage right before they get into the crazy seventh grade stage. So I totally understand.
Yes, because of the hormones end of it, and preschoolers. I don't know how I did it for 11 years. something can be same. But I'm super excited that both of you and I get to do the more creative end of it, because the paycheck isn't getting any bigger. So
Nope.
as long as we're passionate about education, that's what it should be. And more creative stuff we get to do in the educational system, the better.
Yes, 100%. I agree.
And so what is your favorite podcast that you listen to?
I'm going to have to get my phone out here because I've got so many. Well, my favorite one that I've always gone to has been the Tim Ferriss podcast, which is awesome. I love Tim Ferriss, and just all his guests are unbelievable. But there's so many great ones out there now. Quick Brain with Jim Quick. He is known as the memory coach. He's got some really good teaching on how to speed read, how to remember things. He's got some really great things for students. I've actually let my kids listen to his top brain foods and how to remember it, and it was pretty cool. They really enjoyed doing that. And so and I've recently got into Jeff Adams, and that was with the Minty podcast. And then he started a new one called The One Thing. And these are all great productivity, just being better, being your best self type podcasts. I love the self-improvement, self-development podcasts, the ones that get me motivated to be better as a person and to be better in my career.
As a teacher, you can always study your craft, you guys. Teachers think, oh, I can't study my craft. I always study my craft, whether it's listening to podcasts just for the sake of listening, or I do listen to educational podcasts so I can get a better understanding of what teachers are doing in their classrooms, so maybe I can implement some of what they're doing, or maybe I can make my own version of what they are doing in my classroom. So it doesn't hurt to pick up your phone and just pick a niche that you like and listen to it. You never know.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. And I forgot to mention Talks with Teachers by Brian Stafnick. I think I mentioned that in the beginning, but that is one of those that is powerful. He is such a great interviewer, and he has some awesome guests on there when it comes to teaching, and especially if you're looking to hone your craft, for sure. Yeah.
I might need to get into Talks with Teachers, John, because these, even though I'm being more creative in my job, so to speak, these third graders, if I don't keep on top of them, they'll get on top of me somehow, and the sixth graders will get on top of you, and the seventh graders will get on top of you. So I think I need to tune into Talks with Teachers, just to make sure I'm not letting the kids get on top of me.
Yes, for sure.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And before I let you go, I want you to ask, well, first of all, tell people where they can find you, and then ask me a couple of questions that you've been interested in asking me.
Oh, okay, great. I love that. So you can find me on all the social media outlets if you just search Teacher Tunnel. I'm also on Instagram and Facebook. Just search Jon Belt. That's JonBelt. You can always email me at teachertunnel@gmail.com, and I think that's it. Questions for you is what made you start this podcast, and how much time do you spend weekly on the podcast?
Oh my God, John. Do you want the short answer or the long answer? I guess I'll give the medium answer here. Okay. What made me start this podcast? I Okay. I lost one of my teaching jobs in 2009, and then I had to stop and smell the roses moment in 2010. I actually lost my biological mom to a brain aneurysm / meningitis. Actually, she passed away from meningitis. So then I thought, well, since this is happening in my life, since losing a loved one is happening in my life, what am I going to do to better my life? And with her blessing, I actually wrote a book, I Come a Win, and self-published my book. That book can still be found on Amazon, you guys. It's still a great book. And since then, that book hit number 1 week after it came out. That book hit number 1 on Amazon 1 week after it came out. And complete strangers were asking me, how do you do all this stuff with cerebral palsy? And so I said, oh boy, they opened up a can of worms, which I'm not going to let them close. And so I said, oh boy, if I get on this podcasting mic one more time, people are going to tune me out because they'll say, hello, my name is Wynn, I have cerebral palsy, well, with knee parties, all that good stuff. So then I thought, why not interview thought leaders that I want to interview? So that's how this project came to be. It also came to be when I was walking the hallways of the hospital after a back surgery that was horribly wrong that happened to me in '06. So that's why I started this podcast and why I started the disabled advocacy work that I do now.
Wow, that's a great story. I'm gonna have to get your book and read it. It looks I'm on Amazon right now.
Oh yeah.
It looks like a winner.
Yeah, John. No pun intended. And It is on Audible. It is on Audible, you guys. I make sure all my work is on Audible for those who don't have time to read books or for those who can't physically hold a book. I'm realizing that a lot of you don't have time to read books. So that's the story of where I started my podcast. And yes, my job does support the podcast. I don't know about your school, John, but yes, my school supports the podcast because they're more of a creative school than the traditional public school. So I don't know about you, but I certainly hope that your academic institution supports your podcast.
Well, I haven't really. I mean, I've had a couple of my colleagues on, but I haven't really promoted it to my schools because I'm not ready for that vulnerability yet. But I definitely push it on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. So I'm sure there's a lot of people in my schools that listen or know about it, but no one ever brings it up to me. So I'm definitely not one to, I guess, boast about the podcast. Maybe I need to.
I would think you would, but that is just my opinion because what you're doing in the podcast space and what I'm doing in the podcast space, teachers are teachers, disabled or not. So what we're doing on the creative end of it is putting the creative passion back in these kids.
Yeah, I agree, and I'll definitely let my students know about it. And you know what? I'm going to be working with some really great kids next year, and so I'm thinking about maybe starting one with students as well. So that might be a fun little adventure too. But
well,
just as I know, it's a lot of work, and it's one of those things that you have to keep up with, and it's not easy by any means.
It's not easy by any means. And no. John, what would be your closing piece of advice?
closing piece of advice is,
Yeah.
wherever you are in life, life's going to knock you down. And it's about getting back up, and it's about understanding that you are a precious commodity on this earth. If you're familiar with Gary Vaynerchuk, he talks about this. You had a 1 in 400 trillion chance of being born. And so if you have that mindset of knowing that like you could have been a tree, then knowing that like this life is precious and you're only on it for so long, do the things that, and I have trouble with this, do the things that excite you, do the things that provoke you to take risks and be uncomfortable. Don't be the status quo unless you love that, unless you enjoy being the status quo. But take a step out of your comfort zone. And like I said, this is something I struggle with daily. But knowing that I have it in the back of my mind, I at least know it's there, and I'm striving for something more every single day. So my advice is definitely to jump and do things that are uncomfortable for you, because you're only on this earth for a minute amount of time. So that would be it, I guess.
Jump. So a teacher is telling another teacher to jump in the creative pond. Is that what you're saying to me, John? Oh boy. Because as I leave education within the next 4 years, I'm actually going to jump into the fashion journalism field, believe it or not. So
okay.
I took the untraditional path to teaching myself. I actually don't have a associate's degree in teaching. I have what they call a group leadership certificate, but a lot of people think I have an associate's degree in teaching. But I will have an associate's degree. It just won't be in teaching. So there's a little secret for you guys. So basically, John is telling me to jump and don't look back. And he's
right.
telling you all that too. He's telling you to jump, and if you're unhappy in the teaching field, we're sorry, but try and make the best of it. But when the opportunity is given to you, jump. Either jump out of the teaching field or jump into a different position in the teaching field. That's what John and I did, both in this past year, and we're super excited. So if you're unhappy, go to your principal and don't say, I'm unhappy, but just say, look, this is what I really want to do. Can you make this work for me? And 9 times out of 10, they will say maybe, but 9 times out of 10, they may not say yes right away, but at least they know your feelings. I mean, HRs, human resources, and these principals are pretty good about listening to their teachers because they want to keep high-quality teachers within the educational system.
Yes, I completely agree with that. As long as you have that trust with your principal, I think it's paramount that you are open and honest with the people that support you.
Yeah. And that's a great piece of advice. Be open and honest with the people that support you, because we all know that teaching is so tough day in, day out. I mean, teachers get there at 7 a.m. and leave at 5 a.m., leave at 5 p.m., and they buy the cute little stickers for their classrooms out of their own budget. Thank you very much. And so they try and decorate the younger kids' classrooms out of their own budgets. So if you're unhappy in teaching, go talk to your principals and see if they can make the switch for you or help you make the switch. Or if worst comes to worst, you can always say, I'm out of there to go pursue my dreams. But that's always not a good thing, because then they're like, you go into a guilt trip and say, please stay. At least that's what my principal did with me. So I finally said, look, I'll stay for 4 more years and then we're out. But if you don't talk to the people that you trust, there's no hope. So that's what John and I were saying today, and John and I will continue to teach. And please, 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 please go listen to Teacher Tunnels. I will certainly be going to listen to Teacher Tunnels myself. And please, 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 no matter where you listen to Teacher Tunnels, leave a review. All that does is help with the algorithms. Unfortunately, John and I are trying to work on John's iTunes feed that's not working. So unfortunately, it's not quite in iTunes, but it is on the website, teachertunnels.com, and it is in Stitcher, which Stitcher comes with iOS app, and Stitcher comes with Android app. So please, 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 please go listen to Teacher Tunnels. And I hope you guys enjoy another fabulous episode with John and I from Teacher Tunnels. And I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I will see you guys later on today, and we'll keep making this world an amazing place. Thanks to you guys.